are up in Butte, Montana, and they had an area there called Dublin Gulch. So we think he brought that name to this area, and this is known as Dublin Gulch. The first cave that they built were these first two over here, and this is where Joe lived. And if you notice, the first one is at a lower elevation, and then the second one is a little higher. I brought my keys, I think it's rude. But the reason for that is that Joe was not only a very good miner, but he was also a great moonshiner. So everyone multitasked out here. He was also on the school board. So he had a lot of various activities. And simply because of the amenities that Joe offered, he had a lot of visitors here to Gulch. And they would sit out here. This was all rockwork, like the rockwork you see over there. And they would have their glass of moonshine and talk about the latest process. But Joe was also a German, he's from German, he was a German descendant, and he loved wine. So he had a little Victrola that he would put Wagner on, and you can just imagine the scene of them sitting there with their moonshine with the politics and these fellows were very interesting people. Well, it was just so comfortable up here, and it was really a social hotspot. So others wanted to come in and build their little dwellings, warm in the winter, cool in the summer, and a lot of socializing and a different space. So the fellow next door was a miner named John Sheridan, and he worked for Pacific Coast Borax. He had been a miner for them and also I think he was also an engineer. So he really could identify where you might find a borate lode. And so he had his little place here, and he would go out in the road and prospect. Everyone prospected in those days. And he found a mine just north of Shoshone, and he sold that mine to Pacific Coast Borax for $50,000 in 1922. So he was really quite a rich guy now, but he didn't want to leave his friends and his home, but he wanted a pickup because it was moving from horses to cars. So he bought a pickup, and he built himself a garage. So if you notice this tiny little structure over there, that was his garage for his pickup. So, and the name of that mine was the Gersley Mine, and it's just south of Shoshone and operated until about 5 years ago. And then there were others that moved in next door, but they were the principals. Now, across the way here, and I'm cutting this a little short because we've got some really interesting parts ahead of us, is where the Astor brothers lived. And they were Englishmen that came to Bakersfield in their early teens, or their late teens, early 20s. And they did very, very well in Lansford. But they had heard these great stories of wealth and big strides of gold and silver and in the Death Valley area. So they came to Death Valley and bought a mine named Goldie Treasure. And as they had also learned in Lansford that really people make the most money in mining, not from doing the actual mining, but from finding the process and then selling it. So by then they had started to be moved into the businessman side of it. But they did find out that all that glitters in the business side of it is not gold. And their investment in golden treasure, as Carl Grosstock, a Death Valley historian, said, just kept them in mining, in liens and lawsuits for a quarter of a century. So they would sell it, and they get into a lawsuit, and then they would have to move it back, and then it was quite the ordeal for them. But they lived over here, and if all of you have been into Death Valley, they had the Ashford Mill is quite famous there. And they were Englishmen. Interestingly enough, the fellows that lived over here were, and this is before the Soviet Union really got rolling. And the lobbying movement was quite a big movement in the United States. So all of these fellows over here were actually registered as socialists. The Englishmen on the other side of it were only one had a U.S. citizenship, and they considered themselves royalists. So there was quite a feud between the royalists and the socialists, and just added to the drama of both. But again, these fellows were not vagabonds. They were actually miners that did quite well in the day. The last person that lived here was Henry Astor, and he passed on in like 1946. And really, at that time, many things changed in the economy. There was still a lot of mining that they had gotten gold and silver to count. And really, when he passed on, it was the end of his era here. We made a conscious decision not to move the can. We are trying to move as much glass as we can, because we think that it shows the attitude of people in those days about garbage. Nowadays we recycle. And actually, if you get a camera and walk over there, those cans are really quite beautiful. So we have left them there. So I'm really looking forward to it. Today I'll be in volunteers today and tomorrow. I think I'm so pleased with the people here that really realize and I'm looking forward to working with them. And I wanted to make one more plug. In our area, we have so many great sites, you see, biological, cultural, but also geological. This is world-class geology. And our area has been threatened by the big solar farms and other kinds of development that is inappropriate in some ways. So our area now is on the move to create a national monument that would encourage geologists and also preserve our resources. So if anyone's interested in supporting that effort, just contact the Smithsonian Museum. And I'm really looking forward to today. Thank you, John. Dan, John had to run after his hat, so Dan, you want to talk now? Sure. Okay.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. All right, good deal. Well, I came out here a little over 20 years ago looking at zeolite mineralization patterns in the Tecopa lake beds, really following in the conceptual footsteps of Shepherd and Goode, who were working here in the 60s, as Meredith described earlier. So I came out here really to study that, but then I started finding all these other interesting things. By golly, I've been hanging around here doing one thing or another for many, many years. Along the way, I've focused most of my effort on the stratigraphy, whereas Meredith and others have tended towards the margins of the basin looking for things related to that. I've looked more at the stratigraphy of the interior of the basin, and then also the mineralogy associated with alteration patterns. And we're going to see some evidence of that. At this first stop, what I'll do is, in your guidebook, you'll see that there are some sections that I've measured. I think there's a correlated diagram of several sections here, just to give you an idea. I've measured LT10, which is over here, just a little bit to the south. LT1 over there at the Chalcos and Clay. LT8, which is over by where we're going to be at stop number 4. So I've got a couple of sections here. And it provides a little bit of the stratigraphy, especially for the period from what we would say is the pre-Big Lake to the Big Lakes that existed here that Meredith and John have been talking about. And time-wise, we think we can constrain the oldest beds that are exposed over here to some of the upper glass mountain age tephras. Those were established by Andrei Sarnowicki. And so then we have above that, the stratigraphy goes into series of alluvial and deltaic deposits. And you can find the B-tuff or bishop tuff over around the corner here. Bishop tuff is the age on that. I've been using 760. Is that a good number for people?
Still there.
So some of these ash ages seem to have a certain amount of flux to them in terms of the dates.
That one hasn't changed lately.
Okay, that one hasn't changed lately. Oh, if you go look at the bishop ash over here around the corner, you'll find it's right above a alluvial fan sequence. The alluvial fan sequence is all coming out of the Dublin Hills. Near the top of it, however, you get into a section where we start seeing lots of nice rounded river gravels. The river gravels have a variety of different lithologies, and they certainly look like they don't come from the Dublin Hills or anywhere close by. So I think this is one of the first steps in drainage integration that we're going to be looking at here. How much drainage integration? I'm not sure exactly. But I know that these are stream deposits that are coming from some distance. One of the things I find interesting here is the stream, for the most part, was down there in the middle of the basin, or on the edge of the basin. There's the edge of the basin right there. There's the hill. So why is the stream over here? Why did it migrate over here? Probably because it tilted a little bit. And that's one of the things that went on in this basin. And so there was a few early on that essentially there was no syntectonic deformation in this basin. And I'll try to emphasize at a couple stops, this being one of them, that there was some subtle at different times, different ways, and different places. And that's what happens when you start moving out of the late Pleistocene and into the middle Pleistocene and early Pleistocene, you start seeing deformation. And that's one of the things that causes problems when you start placing with the older deposits, putting numbers on shorelines and stuff like that. But we'll get to that different times here. Again, right above that series of river gravels, you actually see a thin little mudstone that comes in that actually is sort of like that little green mudstone we saw at the last stop that was underneath the Lava Creek B. Yep. We see it there, it just comes in, and then right above that we go directly into this Lava Creek B section. This is over-thickened. There's no place in the basin I know where this isn't this thick. That means sediment focusing. We're focusing it here. Why? Because we got a river coming here. The river's bringing it in here. This is essentially a deltaic deposit, according to my interpretation. Others may feel differently. But whereas the subaqueous delta is shooting the sediment out here, and it's nice and wet, and it deforms easily, and Gary Scott will give us some more on that, I guess, at some point here. So, and then passing up above that, I believe we go into alluvial fan deposits again. So now the alluvial fan comes pushing out back again. And we go up a little higher, and what happens again? Well, we get the river coming back in. We see more fluvial gravel, and then it comes back the alluvial fan, and the later history I will let Meredith go into the details of, because she's done some fine work on that. So anyway, as we walk through this, if you have any questions, I'll try to give you some what I know. But we'll take a look at the stratigraphy, hopefully at every stop here, and that'll be sort of a framework which we can work with.